Hello and welcome to today's class. Today we want to discuss the external environmental scanning. Okay, so this is our third lecture in this series. We want to look at the external environment of every organization and how to perform an external environmental scan. So basically, we want to explain the meaning of environmental scanning, and then we discuss the PESTEL framework, after which we'll analyze Porter's 5 forces model for industry analysis. So this basically are our objectives for this session. So if we say an environmental scan, what exactly is environmental scanning? Environmental scanning is a systematic process that organizations use to gather, analyze, and interpret information about the external factors and forces that can affect the business's operations, their strategies, and also their decision making. So an environmental scan basically tries to gather information about the external factors which can affect the operations of the business or its strategies, and also its ability to make quality decisions. The environmental scanning involves monitoring, assessing, and evaluating the business environment in a way that helps you to identify opportunities, to identify threats, and also to identify emerging trends. Okay, so environmental scanning involves monitoring and assessing the business environment to identify opportunities, threats, and emerging trends in the market. So what then is the reason for performing an environmental scan? Why do we need to perform an environmental scanning? The first reason is to anticipate change, right? If an organization is able to do a proper environmental scan, you are able to predict as and when there's likely to be a change in the business environment. Okay, so it helps organizations to anticipate change. It also helps to provide critical input for strategic planning. We said strategic planning is the process where the organization puts together a strategy that helps it to accomplish its objectives. Okay, so planning the strategy, implementing the strategy, evaluating and controlling the strategy all forms part of the strategic planning process. So if the organization is able to perform an environmental scan, what it does is it provides very useful inputs for strategic planning. Okay, then the environmental scan is also necessary for risk management. If the organization wants to effectively manage risk, then it is very important that it performs an environmental scan regularly. Okay. It also helps with opportunity identification. Performing the environmental scan helps the organization to be able to identify opportunities in the business environment. Opportunities that, if they are taken advantage of, will make the business competitive on the market and give it an edge. Okay, so environmental scanning helps with opportunity identification. And finally, it gives the organization a competitive advantage on the market. Okay, so basically the environmental scanning is very, very important, and the organization has to perform it as regularly as it can. It helps to anticipate change, provides critical input for strategic planning. It helps with risk management, opportunity identification, and then it makes the organization also competitive on the market. Okay, so what then are the components of environmental scanning? Basically, the environmental scanning involves a macro environmental scan where the organization focuses on the macro environment where it doesn't have control over. So factors like the technological environment, the economic environment, the political environment, the environment itself, all right, where you focus on the legal environment. Okay, so the organization has to focus on the macro environmental factors. Okay, it also has to focus on industry-specific factors that can affect its operations, right? Then it also focuses on what is happening within the market, the target market, and then also what competition is doing. And then finally, what is happening on the international markets? Okay, so the components of the environmental scan comprise the macro environmental scan, industry environment, the market environment, the competitive environment, and then the global environment. So all of these components are part of performing a very good environmental scan. Okay, so like we said earlier, this class will focus on the PESTEL analysis as well as the Potter's 5 forces model. Okay, so we start with the PESTEL analysis. A PESTEL analysis, it used to be known as the PEST analysis. It's a framework or tool which is used to analyze and monitor the macro environmental factors that may have a profound impact on the organization's performance. Okay, so this tool is useful when an organization is at the starting point or when you are about to start operations as a business. Okay, so this tool is especially useful when starting a new business or entering a foreign market. The PESTEL is an acronym which stands for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and then legal factors. So we'll pick each of the factors and discuss them. The first one we'll look at is the political. So we'll look at the political factors. If we consider the political factors, what the business should focus on whilst performing an environmental scan is how to and to what degree a government intervenes in the economy or a certain industry. So the business would want to assess the level of interference, the level of government interference in the operations of that business. So you may want to consider government policy, political stability or instability, issues of corruption, foreign trade policy, tax policy, labor law, environmental law, and then trade restrictions. These may have direct or indirect effects on the operations of the business, and so it forms one of the factors in performing the PESTEL analysis during an environmental scan. Remember that governments may have a profound impact on a nation's education system, infrastructure, and health regulations. So if you have a business in any of these areas, or even in other areas where government interference is very high, what it means is that it can affect your business positively or negatively. And so there's the need to assess these political factors. Then we also look at the economic factors. These are the determinants of an economy's performance. So you can consider factors like the economic growth, where you find yourself, the economic growth, the exchange rates, inflation rates, interest rates, disposable income of consumers, and then unemployment rates. All of these have an effect on the operations of the business. Okay, the economic factors may have a direct or indirect long-term impact on a company, all right? Because these factors affect the ability of your target market, of your customers or of your consumers to purchase your products or to make use of your service. So if the economic factors are not favorable, then they will negatively affect your productivity as a business organization. And if the economic factors are favorable, then they would have a positive effect on your your business. These are relative to, there are other factors which will also affect it. But basically, the economic factors considers issues about the economy's performance. So these factors affect how you price your products, it affects how you price your services, and it also affects how the consumer perceives your price. Okay, so that if the consumer perceives your price as too expensive, then it will not work in your favor as a business organization. Okay, so basically these are the economic factors. Then we move to the social factors. The social factors represent the demographic characteristics, the norms, the customs and values of the population within which the organization operates. Okay, so if we pick where your business, the area where your business is situated, you may want to consider these demographic characteristics, the norms that are peculiar to your business or peculiar to the people around you, the customs and values of the population within which your business is operating. So you may want to consider population trends, like the population growth rates, the age distribution, income distribution, career attitudes of the people, all right, their emphasis on safety, their health consciousness, their lifestyle attitudes, and cultural barriers. All of these are social factors that can affect your operations. And it's important when you want to target a group of people as your audience or as your target market, all right? You need to consider all of these. It also focuses on the local workforce and its willingness to work under certain conditions. Remember that as a business, you may want to employ people. So if you're employing people, it means that some of these social factors will also affect how they are productive on the job. Okay, so you need to focus on the people you are getting on board and what they are bringing up, because they are also influenced by these social factors. Okay. Then you talk about the technological factors. The technological factors refers to technology, basically. So it refers to technology incentives, the level of innovation, automation, research and development activities. Okay, technological change. Remember that technology is always changing. There are new upgrades every time. So technological factors focus on the technological change and the amount of technological awareness that a market possesses. All right. It's important to know what is going on with technology as it relates to the kind of business that you are in. Because if you know the current technology in use, then your business is also likely to benefit from the advantages of these new technologies. Okay, so it helps your business by not spending more than you have to. Okay, so it prevents overspending, or it prevents you spending on things which are not necessary. Okay, so you don't spend on coming up with the use of a technology that is getting out of the system. So you invest hugely in some kind of technology that will be outdated in the next 2 years or in the next 3 years. That is not a good investment. Okay, so if you are inclined with technology and development, it helps the business to make very good investments, okay, because you know what is coming up and which of the new technologies will be of benefit to your business, okay. Then we look at the environmental factors. The environmental factors, they have become important because of the increasing scarcity of raw materials, right? The issue of pollution, right? And the fact that organizations want to reduce their carbon footprints. Okay, and all of these have become necessary because of issues related to sustainability. All right, so in performing the environmental scan, the organization has to also focus on environmental factors. So you consider the ecological and environmental aspects like the weather, climate, the climate change, and all of these affect, for example, if your business is in the area of tourism, in the area of farming, agriculture, and insurance, you notice that these environmental aspects directly affect your business, okay? It's also worth noting that businesses are now getting more inclined to corporate social responsibility and sustainability. And so as much as possible, they want to reduce pollution. As much as possible, they would want to operate in ways that are not harming the environment. They would want to operate in a more sustainable way. And so because of that, it is necessary that as a business, you focus on these environmental factors that are likely to also affect the operations of your business. Then, finally, we look at the legal factors. The legal factors refer to specific laws that will affect your business. So laws on discrimination, laws on antitrust, employment-related laws, consumer protection laws, copyright issues and patent laws, as well as health and safety laws. Okay, so if an organization trades globally, it becomes especially tricky because you are not sure how or which law is operating where you want to set up your new business. Remember that these laws, they are not static. Laws are relative to where you find yourself. So it is very important that if, for example, your business is an international business, you get to know the law that governs whichever area that your branch is located, right? It is therefore recommended that you have access to a legal advisor or someone who can provide guidance on these legal issues so that as a business, you don't get yourself in trouble. So whilst you are performing the environmental scan on legal issues, it is required that you get a legal advisor, okay? So this is an example you can go through. We'll discuss this example in class. Now we move on to the Potter's 5 forces of competitive position analysis. And this was developed in 1979 by Michael Porter. Okay, and it's a simple framework that helps to evaluate the competitive strength and position of a business organization. So if we look at the market, everyone who is doing your kind of business, you want to look at how competitive your business is on the market. Then we'll perform the competitive analysis. So this is also a tool that can be used to perform the external environmental analysis. And this theory is based on the concept that there are 5 forces that determine the competitive intensity and attractiveness of a market. So it's useful both in understanding the strength of the organization, okay? So it's useful to understand the strength of the organization's current competitive position and the strength of a position that it wants to attain. Okay, so it makes you know your current strength and the strength of where you aspire to be. All right. So according to the model, there are 5 forces, and these are the 5 forces that will help you to perform the analysis. The first force is the supplier power. Then you have the buyer power, the competitive rivalry, the threat of substitution, and then the threat of new entry. Okay. So if we say the supplier power refers to an assessment, or it helps you to assess how easy it is for suppliers to drive up the prices. And this is driven by the number of suppliers of each essential inputs you need for your operations, the uniqueness of their product or service, the relative size and strength of the supplier, and the cost of switching from one supplier to the other supplier. Okay, so you'll notice that all of these factors will state how easy it is for you to get a supplier, and how easy it is for you to retain a supplier, and how easy it is for you to also negotiate prices with your supplier. Okay, so the first factor you focus on in performing the scan, or in performing the external environmental scan, is the supplier power. Then you have the buyer power. The buyer power is an assessment of how easy it is for buyers to drive prices down. Okay, and this is driven by the number of buyers in the market, the importance of each individual buyer to the organization, the cost to the buyer of switching from one supplier to another. Okay, so remember that the supplier power, you are looking at how easy or difficult it is for suppliers to drive your prices up. If you are getting raw materials at a higher cost, it means that it will drive your prices up. Okay, then with the buyer power, you are assessing how easy it is for buyers to drive your prices down. If you have a lot of buyers in the market, how does it affect your business? Would it drive your prices up, or it will drive your prices down? These are factors you consider when you are performing the environmental scan. So if your business has just a few powerful buyers, they are often able to dictate the terms on which they buy from you. Okay, so you have powerful buyers who buy in bulk. They can negotiate on the cost of the unit product because they are buying in bulk. They can negotiate to get discounts from you because they are buying in bulk. All right. And all of this will affect your pricing as well as your profit on the product or service that is being delivered. So we've discussed the supplier power, the buyer power. We now talk about the competitive rivalry. And this is the main driver, okay? It considers the number and capability of competitors in the market. It looks at how many people are in your line of business, okay? If you have a lot of competitors who are offering undifferentiated products and services, what it means is that it will reduce your market attractiveness, okay? A lot of competitors on the market will reduce your level of market attractiveness. That is, if you are offering undifferentiated products or services, you are doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, then the competition on the market is going to be very high. And you may lose market, or you may have to share customers among the other competitors on the market. So you may want to consider how competitive the industry within which you are working is, or within which your business is located is. How competitive is that industry, and how is your business positioned in that industry? Then you have the threat of substitution, where close substitute products exist in the market. What happens is that it increases the likelihood of customers to switch to alternatives in response to price increases. So if there are several substitutes, okay, for your product that you are dealing in, what happens is if you increase your price for the product or for the service, the consumers are likely to switch to substitutes. Okay, so for example, I'm using a big pen and big increases the price, I'm likely to switch to another brand of pen. Okay, so this reduces both the power of suppliers and the attractiveness of the market, because if you are not there, there is a substitute. Okay, so in performing an external environmental scan, it is important that you get to assess the threat of substitution within that industry. And then you also look at the threat of new entry, all right? So you realize that if a market is profitable, it will attract new entrants. And once it attracts new entrants and you have a lot of competitors, what it means is that you're going to be sharing your customer base with other competitors. And so it will erode your profitability, or you may have to share, you may have to share your revenue with the other competitors. And so that will reduce your profitability on the market. Okay, unless the existing business has strong and durable barriers to entry, for example, where you have patents, economies of scale, or where the capital required to start the business is high, or if government policies are not friendly enough, and so it's not easy for new entrants to get into the market, then that will work for businesses which are already existing in that industry, all right? Otherwise, what happens is that they will all get in, and then profitability will be reduced, okay? All right, so this we will do in class. What we are going to be doing is to make use of the same business we came up with in our activity 2, right? So with that same business, we are going to be performing an external environmental scan, okay? So what you will do in this activity is to identify relevant PESTEL factors for the business you identified in activity 2. And then you evaluate the industry competitiveness using Porter's 5 forces model. Okay, so you perform the PESTEL analysis, and then you will also make use of the 5 forces model of Porter, right, to evaluate the industry competitiveness. Then you also develop strategies to leverage opportunities and then mitigate threats, okay? So basically, these are what we'll be doing and presenting in class whilst when we meet, okay? Thank you all very much. We'll meet in class.